show, the Beautifully Bruised and the CPS show. First and foremost, y'all already know who am I going to thank before I even start the show. I think everybody that watches and pretty much know at this point, I always thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because in the world we live in today with so much taking place, you need to have some type of balance in your life. And He has definitely been that for me. So I call Him my daddy because I never knew my earthly father. So I've always taken on to my heavenly father. So again, I always start my show out with Him because I know with the way the world is today, with so much taking place, again, you have to have a solid rock that you can stand on when everything else seems to be so out of place and unconnected to reality and the people hearts and souls. So again, I always want to give credit where credit is due. I am your host again, Latrika Jones, and I just wanted to come on because I have one of our, we're going to, as you're going to be seeing today on this segment, I do believe that we're going to be covering some very heavy hit topics. Both of our guests that's going to be joining us today, they are guests that have been here before, and they definitely, when she reached out to me, I couldn't believe what I heard actually. And I just thought it was something that was worth being shared. And it's something that hopefully we all that's tuning in to watch and listen, that we all can learn from, about that this is really happening and somebody needs to stand up and make a change for what's good, for the best for our children, as well as for these parents. So without any further ado, I'm going to be starting out with Amber, but I'd like to welcome Amber Collins and Jennifer White back to our show today.
Hi.
Hello, hello, hello. And like I said, I've been on break. This is the first live streaming that I have. So I'm honored that you ladies have decided to join me on such a very, to me, heart-wrenching topic that needs definitely to be discussed and shared with the world. So with that being said, Amber, like I said, I'm going to start with you and we're going to pass it on to Jennifer. I just want to say the people that have not tuned into your previous stories that you both have shared, can you please both share where you're from, where you're calling in from?
Yeah, I'm calling in from, oh, there goes my thing. From San Antonio, Texas. Sorry.
You're fine. We heard you. You're fine. And also for you as Jennifer, where are you located as well?
Currently San Antonio.
Okay. So we have Texas that's on the map. I'm also born and raised here in Texas. And again, I just want people to know that this is almost like an epidemic with CPS. It's nothing that's just, regional, it's national. And I just think that this type of story definitely deserves some major headlines to make a person kind of sit down and think and reconsider what is happening in our world today with our children and this government. So with that being said, Amber, I'm going to go right on to you with the questions. Would you please? Yeah, I'm just going to start out with this question here, Amber. What moves you to call in or to reach out to me regarding the story with Jennifer at this point with what's going on?
I will do this and try not to cry. Everything that she has been through with CPS and her journey and everything, it has, I've shared my story on your channel with CPS, and I've been very vocal on my own channel, my own platforms with my history of CPS. Mm-hmm. And so I know somewhat the kind of levels that CPS will go to. Mm-hmm. And what has been done to her is just the blatant lies and the injustice and the family that has the kids right now, the only ones that suffer in the end, of course, Jennifer and her, the other father, her husband, they suffer as well. But those kids are the ones that are suffering.
Absolutely.
And it's heartbreaking. And I believe that her case needs all the attention that it can get. I fully believe that she should have her kids. I don't think that the kids should have ever been removed.
Wow.
And just that, I even at one time was her sponsor, and they even lied to me about some of her, the test results that came back.
Okay.
It's just, and then to find out that they were all lies. And it's irritating and aggravating hearing and seeing people sit there and say that, oh, CPS doesn't get involved for no reason. CPS doesn't take your kids away for no reason. CPS doesn't do this or that for no reason. And not only am I a victim of CPS and doing stuff for no reason, so is Jennifer. But only I think hers is worse. Hers is way worse than what I went through with CPS.
You went through a lot. So for you to say hers is worse, that's
Mm-hmm.
volume, a lot of volume. And I want to say with that, like I said, I've interviewed both of you both. And even when I spoke with you, Jennifer, I knew from the bat that you love your children.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that wasn't a secret. It wasn't nothing that you couldn't pick up on. Our first conversation, it tugged my heart. This is a woman that was fighting for her babies, that would give her life for her children and was willing to go through whatever. And CPS do take you through, because again, unfortunately, I'm a victim of CPS as well years ago by the grace and mercy of God. But I knew they took me through my attorney shared, okay, they're going to take you through it. So get ready for this ride. And a lot of people they know are not able to maintain it. And they take advantage of that because they do everything under the sun to take you through. And it's not always right. That's the sad thing. It's not always they have your children's best interests at heart, including the parents. So with that being said, I definitely want to mention that Jennifer, when our initial conversation, it's very obvious that you love your children.
Mm-hmm.
And you was willing to do whatever it takes to bring your children back home. So with that being said, Jennifer, if you don't mind, of course, welcome back. And how are you, honestly, how are you feeling right now?
Basically like a wounded animal.
Jesus. Right.
I mean, it's like going through the waves. Like
Right.
there's a lot of crying and screaming,
Right.
but it's just basically like I've been fighting this for years. So this isn't going to stop me.
Right.
This is just going to make me fight harder.
Correct.
I'm taking the rest of this week and this weekend to really gather myself
Right.
and compose my thoughts and my emotions before really making my next steps. But, during our last time I was on here, the Indian Child Welfare Act had not been ruled on. The Supreme Court did issue a ruling, and they sided with the tribes in regards to letting ICWA, or the Indian Child Welfare Act, stand. And that case originated in Texas, and they're just doing it all over again. They ruled in favor of the lower courts. They affirmed the parental termination in my case. My attorney let me know yesterday, and she says that she does not think that the Texas Supreme Court will find this case even worthy of being heard in the Texas Supreme Court. Those were actually her words to me. She does not think that the Texas Supreme Court will even find this worthy. Taking 3 children whose culture and traditions have been robbed from them and taken from a family that loves them by people that felt the need to call CPS on me for whatever their own personal vendettas were.
Right. That happens.
Karma's going to get them.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jennifer. Can you say the last part again, please?
Karma gets hers in the end.
It always does.
I'm back in this.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You reap what you sow. I've always thought that. And thank you, Jennifer, for updating us on that, because that's something I was going to ask you, for the previous or for the guest that's tuning in today who is not aware of your story. So you pretty much did. I want you to update us on your CPS case. So you're saying as of yesterday, you have been notified that they are going to try to move forward with terminating your rights as with your children.
They terminated my rights in Artiega's courtroom, in Judge Antonio Artiega's courtroom. So then it went to the 4th Court of Appeals in Bexar County. And I contacted the 4th Court of Appeals, and I let them know that I was in the process of going through the genealogy and figuring out exactly which roles my grandparents and parents needed to be on and which tribe I needed to be enrolled in, and that the children should be protected by the Indian Child Welfare Act. I tried letting them know that in regards to the OneDrive that they sent me, that it had been edited. They said it didn't matter. They said that the tribes actually have no standing in an appeal court, and my attorney that is doing the petition for the Texas Supreme Court, and I do trust her, to do a good job. Hopefully, but she doesn't have any tribal experience, from what I understand. And she said that when it came to the appeal, that the attorneys who did the appeal did not put in there anything in regards to the fact that these children are eligible or are in the process of finding their correct tribe and where they exactly have to go. And that because those lawyers, that law firm didn't put it in there and challenge the indigenous part of this case, that it doesn't matter. And I've researched the law. According to the Indian Child Welfare Act, they're not supposed to contact just one tribe. They're supposed to contact all of them. They only contacted the Fort Seal Apaches. We've gone through that. I'm not part of the Fort Seal Apaches. I told them, you need to send the paperwork to New Mexico. You need to send the paperwork to Arizona. I said, you need to send the paperwork to the Apaches, the Navajos, or Diné's. And they didn't do any of it.
Okay.
And I spoke to the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And when I spoke to their office, they were like, we've never even heard, like, CPS has never contacted us with your children's names. And so, like, whether I'm actually an enrolled member or not, these children are with people that are violating traditional rights and are not exposing my children or letting them be a part of traditions and customs. And
which is very important.
It is.
Oh my God. That's what I want to ask you too, Jennifer, with that. So they can move forward to this level of extent without following the protocol of reaching all tribes. There's nothing
that's what they did. That's what they did. And then they lied. They basically lied in court and said that they did their due diligence by contacting one tribe. And I had let my caseworker know at that point in time that she needed to not just contact the one tribe, that she needed to contact all of the tribes. Exactly. And that if they did not answer by phone, then she needed to mail paperwork certified. And if they did not respond by certified mail, then it was her job to go out there. She didn't do any of that. And frankly, the Fourth Court of Appeals, their decision was based off of lies. And it was heartbreaking to read. When I read what they actually wrote about me, they said that my child arrived to a daycare with a dirty diaper. Like, the child was 6 weeks old. I'm sorry that he pooped on the way to the daycare.
I mean, that seems just so basic. Babies pooping their diapers. I mean.
Yeah, and that I called the daycare and was irate. I was irate because my children were coming to me with bite marks. This was La Petite Daycare in Converse. They were coming to me with bite marks all over them. They were coming to me bruised. My child said that the foster mom pushed him in the parking lot of the daycare. Like, yes, I was irate. I was not happy.
Yes, I think any parent would be.
And you know what? If the foster mom truly loved my children, then she would have been irate and asking for those children to be moved too.
I agree. And Amber, you can jump in at any time if there is something that you want to share as well. I do want to ask you this one question before we proceed, Jennifer. What do you think that you honestly think that needs to be done at this point with where your case is? I think that the Texas Supreme Court should find this case worthy. For them to say that 3 children and parents and a loving family that have fought this hard for these children and for this case to be heard, that it's not worthy. These are 3 children who are being robbed of a loving mom and a loving family. And not just that, but like culture, they are being robbed of all of that. So for a court to say that they do not find this case or these children or myself or my family worthy enough to even hear it, I think that's BS. And I think that it should be heard in the Texas Supreme Court. And I think that they need to understand that, like, I'm still doing the genealogical research and in the process of trying, to actually get like the enrollment like through and everything, like that they don't have jurisdiction over this case. If you go back to federal jurisdiction on this case, federal jurisdiction, it's not the state of Texas that has jurisdiction over this case. This should actually probably be held in a tribal court. See, that's what I was thinking also. So yeah, that's what I was thinking, because before, I know you said that's the way it's supposed to be handled. What was the determining factor for them to just take it out of what Isn't it law that you're supposed to stay within
because
the
they never
custody?
did their due diligence, and in the course of the case I was still, like I said, it's not an easy process. You don't just go knock on the door or call them or send your email in. Like you have to
It's a
start
process.
learning the culture, learning the people, figure out where your grandparents are, like on the rolls, like figure out your blood quantum. And it's there's a whole long process to it. It's not like this just happens overnight. But either
Overnight.
way, through the
Yeah.
genealogical, through the research that I've done, I've traced it back, and I'm still working on the paperwork for the, where the census rolls are, where my great grandma was born, because I don't have a birth certificate from government paper. She never had a social security number. So it's like actually going through back and like crossing the, crossing the T's, dotting the I's. But in the midst of this, it's just heartbreaking that this is going on.
I can only imagine. I mean, when you would see the news, like you said, as of yesterday, recently, that pretty much are they saying that you are going to most likely lose custody of your children unless this appeal is granted?
Unless it's already been appealed. So they appealed it in the 4th Court of Appeals, but unless this is granted to be heard by the Texas Supreme Court, then basically there's nothing else I can do. Because they're saying that at this point, even if I was an enrolled member of a tribe, even if I had a little tribal card, that it would not matter, because in the paperwork they did not put anything about the Indian Child Welfare Act.
But
so
that's
basically they're saying no matter what my culture is, no matter if I'm actually an active tribe member, no matter what, they don't care. The state of Texas doesn't care. They don't deem that even a qualifying. They don't care about culture. They don't care about traditions. They don't care about spirituality in this case.
I
that's basically what they've said to me.
That's the way it sounds. If you're saying they're not doing the work, they're not doing the research, and it seemed like to me the reason why they're not doing it because they don't feel like you say, doing the work and looking into it. It's an easy write-off by just reaching out to one tribe and just writing it off. And I just
basically, it's not to get into the other political injustices of the world, but like I'm pretty active. Like I was really active in regards to protesting for ICWA, and I'm really active in regards to protesting for murdered and missing Indigenous women. Mm-hmm. And that's what the red handprint across the face stands for, or what the handprint over your face stands for. Like we won't be silent anymore. Right. And there's like a huge uprising right now, and it's not just my case, and it's not just my case that's worthy of being heard. Like all across America, Child Protective Services is not doing their due diligence into looking into the culture and traditions of children they are stealing. They are kidnapping these children. And I'm not just speaking about like when we speak of indigenous culture, you have to remember Mexico, at one point in time, there was no border, there was no landline. So the government just wants to say like, oh, this only applies to, Cherokees, Apaches, Navajos, Seminoles, Choctaws, or Dene. Like, you have to remember, like Azteca, like the Hispanic culture, like that was a tribe too, still is. Like there's beauty in all of that. So to steal these children, and I'm not trying to be racist here, but to take take them out of their cultural homes and give them to people that don't understand that culture. And I know that you're part African. I mean,
no, I'm actually all African from that I know of. I never knew my father.
So you understand. Like I'm not trying to play the race card here, but your culture.
I'm not even thinking about that. No, I my heart goes out to you. From what
but I mean, you have tribal roots too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm in total agreement with you, because when you're taking a person out of their culture, out of their what they know, and placing them in God knows where, it's like you're striping them of their identity. You took the words out of my mouth, Amber. So
yes, and I'm not
just life. Wow.
Yes, and I'm not just native. My mom was European. You know what I mean? So they have deep European roots. And the father of the youngest two his family goes back to King Lounsdale in England. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many traditions and, you know, and things that these children are actually being deprived of in this entire case. It's really sad.
It's very sad, Jennifer. And my God, I do have a few more questions I want to ask because again, I thought this subject, this story needs to reach. I pray this video goes viral. I hope Attorney Vince is watching. Because I think I've heard him speak on cases before dealing with tribes and things of that nature. And you are basically a major cry for help, saying, "Hey, they're taking my child away," and without, if I'm understanding you correctly, they didn't do their due diligence to check into the tribes. They didn't do what they are supposed to do, and now you are basically losing your kids behind it. So I pray and hope Attorney Vince or someone of that magnitude of an attorney that knows CPS laws and rights, I strongly recommend making an appointment if you have not already, to definitely put everybody on board to see what can be done to rescue these children from being shipped or sold like they're just objects. And with that being said, Amber, if you like to share, please feel free. I don't know if there's something you want to say. Okay, if it wasn't, that's fine. I thought you was going to say something.
Oh, no, I'm just listening. It's just, like I said, her case needs to be heard. More people need to hear about it. The injustice behind all of it. The kids need to go home. They really, and they will. Eventually, they will come home. I fully believe they will come home. It's just, we're going to have to fight harder.
Correct. With that being said, Jennifer, this might sound simple, but I know as a parent, when my child was taken away, it's also real. And that was only doing a temporary transition. So to hear the words that your children might be permanently taken away, can you please share with your children, your 3 kids, how old are they?
They're 7, 4, and 3.
Very young children.
Yes, London is 7, James is 4, and Paris is 3. And I'm keeping a straight face and a cool composure now, but like, it's been nothing but crying and screaming. Jesus. And I mean, it's just been nothing but crying and screaming. I've cried and screamed to a lot of people over the past day and a half. And I just, I don't think that the state of Texas or the CPS, like when I actually read what they wrote in the affirmation, it's based off of lies. Because in trial, all it was lies. All it was lies. They said that my house was in shambles. Everybody that came over to my house said my children had a Disney World fantasy land set up. Oh, my son had a pirate ship bed. He had clouds all over the walls. It was painted blue for him. I mean, they had a Montessori learning station. My daughter had a tree house, like, bed set up. I mean, it was absolutely positively amazing what was put together for them. And it wasn't just me and my significant other that put it together. It was a community of people that came over and laid their hands in those rooms for those kids, hoping that they would come home.
Correct.
You know, like, multiple people came over and painted those rooms. Multiple people came over and helped me set up everything for them. So that for them to say that my house was just in shambles, that it was my drug addiction. You know, I have a CPS caseworker in, I believe, Orange County that thinks that I'm doing so well in sponsoring other people that she actually sends her clients to me for sponsorship.
Oh my God.
So for them
that didn't mean anything? That didn't mean anything? Another CPS caseworker that would say that?
No, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that I'm fighting CPS even harder, and they don't like that. Because I'm helping other parents bring their children home, and that's what they don't like.
With that, oh my God, like that. So it's almost like, do you feel like you're being retaliated against? In so many words?
I mean, if I was to actually send you the paperwork on what they said about me and my parenting skills, that I'm not caring, that I'm not compassionate, that I don't know how to parent, that I don't know how to work, that I don't know how to have a stable life, they have ripped my family apart. Right. And I have done nothing but dig in and become more stable. Right. I have done nothing but fight harder against the war on drugs. I've done nothing but fight harder to help other families and children. For them to say like, oh, she doesn't know how to parent. She doesn't know how to not be an addict. She doesn't know how to live stably and clean. That's crap.
That's not what I see. I mean, honestly, just that this is the second or third time you've been on the show, and like you say, you are an advocate for other mothers fighting for the children, other
Not
parents,
other mothers, but other fathers as well.
fathers as well.
Mhm.
That's true. Yes, absolutely. Um,
Not only that, but they were gonna give her her kids back several times, and stuff happened. But I mean, I don't want to share anything that you don't want to share, Jennifer. But she was going to get the kids back. They were saying, they would say that, oh, you're good as long as you're not with your spouse, and then I'm not going to share anything that you don't want me to share. But then she wouldn't get the kids back. So how is it that they're saying that she's not capable of being a parent and having her kids right now when they were going to give them back to her multiple times?
exactly.
Well,
It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. And the fact that they sit there and say that she was non-compliant in doing her drug tests. I took them. I drove them
Personally, took
to get, personally, to go take their drug tests. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
What they said about they said from the start of the case at the removal, I was pregnant with Paris. And they said basically if I was to leave my significant other, then they would give the children back. And the judge at that time said, you guys have to realize she's got a baby in her. Like, y'all are trying to separate this family rather than see how we get to the root issues. Because I'm not saying that there aren't issues. I'm not saying that there weren't issues. But they were basically saying like, and I had asked before the removal hearing, if there's an issue with this relationship that you see, what can we do like to engage ourselves to become a better couple and a better family? Like, what do we need to do? Because this isn't just an I issue. And that's where I see in this course, in other cases that I'm working on, where they're trying to do the same thing and pin the parents against each other. Hey, if you just leave your wife, then we'll give you the kids back. You're good.
Right.
And it's not like, hey, what can we do as
separate,
an entity or as an organization to help the family? It's like, let's separate you two and basically like, I mean, they put you through it. They try to pin you against each other so hard. It was never, and I asked like, okay, well, I can take the children while we get the significant other the help he needs and we get the counseling that we need to understand how we move forward. And that never happened. And during the course of the case, they straight lied. There were several times where my drug tests were clean. The very first drug test that I ever took was clean. And what's sad is that stuff never came up in trial. That stuff never came up in the appeal. Everything that came up in trial and the appeal was just a lie. Like, oh, because I admitted that I had ever in my entire life used the substance, then I could never be a parent again. I'm not worthy of being a parent. Honesty didn't mean anything in that trial. I was honest. I was the only person on that witness stand that was honest. You want to know why? Because I took responsibility for my past.
Right.
I openly admitted, yes, I'm not a saint, man.
Nobody's a saint, and there's other people that have had past with that as well. And some were, as long as they did their services or do what they were told to do, they were able to get their children back.
And if I didn't have a past, if I hadn't struggled through addiction to get to recovery, I wouldn't be on the road that I'm on now. And that meant nothing to them. All that they wanted to talk about was that my child had a dirty diaper, that my daughter had been injured and they didn't want to talk about the fact that as soon as she was injured, I was straight to the clinic to get her care. They didn't want to talk about that. All they wanted to talk about was that she was injured. And it was a very little time. Accidents happened. She was little.
So do you think, honestly, Jennifer, those are the things you think that they're trying to hold against you or remove?
That's exactly what they're trying to hold against me. And they literally, reading what they wrote about me in the affirmation was, I mean, just outright depressing. Like, I couldn't even get through all of it because I was like, I can't believe that I'm reading that this was actually put into a court about me. Like, what they have legally put on paper and said about me is demeaning
Jesus.
It's humiliating. It's outright gross because none of those things are true. They say that I don't love my little two children. You want to know who I fought the hardest for? Who I constantly called the daycare for was my son. And they say that I love him the least.
What?
And they say that the reason that the children should stay where they are is because Paris has lived her life there. You know why Paris has lived her life there?
Because they took her away.
Because they took her away.
Correct.
And because COVID happened and because they lied multiple times about drug tests. They straight lied about the results of drug tests. Not one drug test was ever allowed to be entered into evidence in this court. They did not show one single positive drug test to the court. They did not show a single drug test to this court. Not a single one. How do you terminate parental rights based on the best interest of children and say it's because of addiction or issues with the parents when they never entered a single piece of evidence? They never heard testimony from the fathers. They just heard testimony from every caseworker that disliked me, the daycare worker who was abusing children in the daycare, who of course didn't like me because I called her out on it, and the foster parents, who of course had their own agenda. And so that's what the Fourth Court of Appeals based their affirmation on. And now to say like, hey, tradition and culture stands nowhere in the court is complete trash.
It's hard to believe because even when they try to, from what I witnessed, Jennifer and Amber, they try to put your children in a similar environment, you know, regardless of nationality, religion, things of that sort. So they tell you that's the reason for placing them in certain homes, but yet it doesn't matter when you permanently put them in a permanent home. So it's almost like you don't know what to believe. It's so many different sides to this story, and it's all over the place.
Yeah, it's bad. And Amber, she's witnessed it. I mean, I love her. We've had our ups, you know, she's been there through the course of this case, and she knows how rough it's been.
That's what I'm saying. It's almost hard to follow because, you know, like you say, they're holding you to your past and what they're trying to use to keep your kids from being reunited. It doesn't even really have anything to do substantial to me from what I'm hearing for them to do that. So they didn't remove them from drugs. Is that correct? Your drug test was fine. They didn't remove them because you had dirty drug tests.
I'm not going to lie. During the course of the case, you know, I went through outpatient. Okay. I completed it as I needed to. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say I was perfect and never had a substance abuse problem because I did. Right. But the whole point of the case was to make sure that I was straight and that I was good, that my significant other was, and that I was on the right path.
That's what I mean. So you did get to that path.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Because from what I'm looking at, it seemed like you have. So that's what I'm saying. So that wasn't the determining factor.
No, you have to remember my CPS case was dismissed.
See what I'm saying?
They dismissed my CPS case. Dismissed it.
I'm you know what? It's almost like a game. It's like it's a game they're playing with you.
It's a dog and pony show.
Huh?
It's basically a dog and pony show.
That's what I'm saying. It's so crazy and all over the place. It's like is this really happening? So at the points, let me ask you this too, Jennifer, because I think it's substantial as well. I know, Amber, you mentioned it was a few times they were going to bring the child back. So what has changed other than that they just didn't want you and the father together in the home, even though you're getting ready to have another baby by the father?
Well, after we had the baby, they removed Paris from the hospital. And then after that, it was constant lies. Like, we would be doing really well, and the counselor would be recommending, like, hey, okay, they're making progress. Our lawyers would be like, you guys are on the right path. Right. And then at one point, they were getting ready to return the children, and they said that my significant other had faked a drug test, and that even though he couldn't possibly fake it appropriately, like he didn't do a good job of faking it, that he tested positive for absolutely everything under the sun.
Oh, my God.
It took a couple months to get that drug test back. Wow. And the drug test, when the lawyer handed it to me, he was like, get a load of this one. He was like, not only did he not test positive for everything under the sun, they couldn't even test it. There was evidence the lab was trying to tamper with the results and with the hair.
And
Like, he's completely clean. So 3 months after that, of course, when I get told, my counselor gets told, our lawyers get told that he's negative, we're, like this. And the same thing with me. I would be positive. I would not be positive. I'm sorry. I would be negative, and I would get told your tests are positive. He would get told my tests were positive. Our lawyers would get told my tests were positive. Then we come back and we're like, well, they're all negative.
See, and I know now with these tests that they're doing, I'm very suspicious because I know we had a professional. I don't know if you got a chance to catch that episode. He was on Attorney Bench show where he said a lot of these tests sometimes can come back negative, positive. You could be clean, but some kind of way these tests seem to be rigged and it come back dirty. I even know someone personally had that experience where she had never done drugs, but she came back with a dirty test. So like that's something that you can really base off of it, in my honest opinion, with the way things are being rigged with these drug tests with CPS at times. So
yeah, that's why, like, my last CPS case that I had, when I went to go do a drug test, I would not go where they wanted me to go. Here in San Antonio, I am absolutely convinced there are places that work with CPS that will falsify a positive drug test for them to get your kids taken away. There are so many people that I've talked to here in San Antonio that have had that happen. So when I had my last case from last year, and I went to go drug test, I did not go anywhere that had anything to do with CPS. I went and it came back negative.
See, I believe that because I don't know who it was prior to, but I seen that they have their own little system within a system. Like they're like specified doctors and daycares, and I think these people will co-sign on CPS what they want.
Yes,
so I think it's very wise to go outside of their system to your own doctors and drug screenings and things like that.
Yes, someone one time actually sent me an article, and it was a really good read on how you should check the doctor that signs off on your CPS drug test, because they're only using 1 to 2 doctors across the entire country.
Really? With all
these I'll have to find the article. It was a really good read.
Oh, see, that's another way you know something is suspicious. Out of all these hundreds, if not thousands of cases, you only have 2 doctors?
Basically, it was the same 1 to 2 doctor. They were like, if you're getting this doctor signed on your drug test, then you know that it's not real, because it's basically just like a stamp.
Yeah,
like
that's stamp it positive. Stamp it positive. Absolutely. And I realized that too. That it definitely seemed like it's some old systems that they got going on. Just sign off on this, and that's why. Oh my God, that's horrible. It is horrible. It is. It's a system within another system. It truly is. And I'm so glad y'all mentioned it, because you have a lot of families that's going through that now. And they are probably saying, hey, these are the service. CPS is requesting these services, but these are the only places you can go. But I think that's a vital point, saying, no, I do have someone of my own that I would like to go to that can provide that same type of service. That way.
Yeah, you can go anywhere.
Yeah. And
right. You could go anywhere. That from my knowledge, you don't have to go only strictly to their location.
But they don't tell you that. They don't tell you that.
That's right.
They tell you that you have to go where they're sending you, and that is complete BS. That's why I say all the time too, if you have an active CPS case and they're wanting you to do a drug test, you do not have to go where they're going. And I'm telling you, you go. There's someone here in San Antonio that I met who was taking just ibuprofen, and she tested positive for everything because she went where CPS told her to go, and she lost her kids.
Oh my God.
And all she was doing was taking ibuprofen. When she went to her doctor, told her doctor what was going on, some doctor's offices here in San Antonio, they have a lab in the doctor's office, and they did the lab work there. They didn't tell CPS if they were going to do it. They just did it there, and nothing was in her system. So eventually she was able to get her kids back, but it was a fight. It was a
fight over a wrong test result due to CPS.
Yep. And then, I mean, not only that, even if it does show up positive. There are so many different things out there that even medications that you can take that will come back as a false positive.
That's true.
And I believe that happened with a couple of your cases or drug tests, Jennifer, where when you looked into the medications that you were taking, it can show up as a false positive for other stuff. Even foods, there's foods that you can do that you can eat. I see a doctor regularly for my addiction, and my drug test back in January, I came back positive for heroin. I told him I'm not doing it, and he knows me well enough to know that I'm not using. So he sent it in, and I had lemon poppy seed muffins before my appointment.
I can throw it off. I've heard that before.
I've heard of that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I've heard of the poppy seeds before.
Mm-hmm. So you have to be careful what you're eating. That's why when you go and you take these tests, you need to say every single medication that you're taking, everything that you've eaten. Like, it's not that, I mean, we have our phones at the finger of at our fingertips.
Right.
Google, like, what have I eaten in the last hour that can show up as a false positive? And then make sure you say that before you go take a drug test. Because over my course of 13 CPS cases, I've had medical neglect, I've had physical abuse, emotional abuse, and drug abuse. And I was not treated as horribly with the drug or with the other cases as I was the drug abuse. And the drug abuse, I didn't do anything in front of my kids. My kids were not privy to any of that. You've got physical abuse and medical neglect, which are very serious, very serious. And I was treated like a queen. Like, they were very nice, they talked to me very nice, but as soon as I had that CPS case with the drug test or with the the drug case, I almost got my kids taken away. Had I not had previous CPS workers, a county DA's office, I would have lost my kids, all because of a CPS worker that did not like me.
That was biased and didn't have integrity. There we go. Them are the ones I don't mind calling out, because I do know I'm not saying all CPS caseworkers are bad, because I've met some, and I know, Amber, you shared before. You, Jennifer, you said you had one that reached out to you for your service.
I firmly believe, and I don't want to say her name or my sponsee's
please
name,
don't. Right.
But she told me, she was like, she called, and I'm not a liar. That's the thing. Like, I have a sponsee that she's got that is killing it. I mean, she's kicking ass. We're in contact. I've spoken for her on a conference call with her caseworkers after they asked how the children were doing. I was like, she is doing absolutely amazing. Like, this woman deserves her children back. And then I had another sponsee, the case, she contacted me and she was like, well, this isn't going so hot. And I was like, well, you want me to contact your caseworker for you? But I'm not going to lie. Like, this is my name on stuff. So if you're doing well, I'll go to bat for you. But don't, like, I'm still here for all of, if you're relapsed, I'll still have, but we got to figure out how to get it, like, back on track.
On track, right.
And that's one of the reasons that the caseworker likes me. Is she was like, well, how much has she been contacting you? And I was like, I'm going to be honest. And she was like, because I haven't heard from you on status updates like I do your other sponsee that is also her client. And she's, with this one woman, she's like, she didn't necessarily have enough food. She was like, I spend my own money to go buy food for them. I make sure that they have air conditioners in the house. Like, there are good caseworkers out there. They're not all bad, but what I feel is really the injustice is the culture that's being robbed from children, and how addicts are treated. It's absolutely positively disgusting. Like, they act like we're subhuman, like we're not worthy of being parents, like we don't know how to love. Like, the thing is after we come out of the other side of addiction, we're probably like some of the strongest parents.
Oh God, I would think so. Yes, all you've overcame, absolutely. And believe it or not, Jennifer and Amber, you are shedding light for the because I have heard too many times, and not just from parents as being victims to CPS having previous drug histories, but people that work for the inside for CPS say that they admitted that they do normally take the cases dealing with drug history. They treat them worse. They've admitted that. People that work for the system. They treat them
sad. Especially if you're clean and you're being told over and over and over again, you're using. Eventually, you're like, well, maybe I am, and I
That's
just don't remember it. It,
yeah,
it,
Amber.
it, it's a mind game.
Oh
Like,
my God, it is. It is.
when you get told something so many times,
Yep.
you eventually start to believe it, even if it's not drugs, like even
Believe
if somebody's telling you you're horrible, eventually you start believing
Start
it.
rubbing off. Yeah. Maybe I
And
am.
it's
Yeah.
just, it's heartbreaking. And, with addicts, especially those that are like new in recovery, we have to learn all over again new coping mechanisms because
Mhm.
we have gotten so accustomed to going out and using. Something bad happens, we go use. Something good happens, we go use. We are, you know, unsure of what the hell is going on, we go use. Like, we use any excuse to go out there and use. And when you're fighting to stay clean, which is extremely hard,
I
it
can
is
only
so hard
imagine.
to get clean and to stay clean. And then you're finally clean and you have your kids, you love your kids, even in your addiction. I seriously hate it when people sit there and say, well, you have kids, why weren't your kids enough to get you clean? It doesn't work like that.
Is it more of a
Um,
mental? Is it like a disease? I've heard that is.
It is a disease.
Okay.
It has
Yes.
been scientifically proven that an addict's brain it's wired completely different than a non-addict's.
Wow.
Mhm.
It's been scientifically proven it is a mental disease.
Wow.
And
It is.
so how is it that you treat me differently because I'm a drug addict, but if I sit here and say I'm bipolar or I have PTSD,
Right.
I'm okay?
Right.
You don't treat me differently. Or if I have cancer, you don't treat me differently. But I say I'm a drug addict and you treat the dog crap out in the street better than you treat me.
Mhm.
It's a
It's
mental illness.
That's what I was going to say. So, do you think? Well, obviously, you pretty much answering a question by y'all even being on the show today. But just to say it out loud for our guests and I mean, our listening audience to hear as well. Do you think that the system is set up in place for parents that have maybe had a previous drug history? We all have a past
yeah.
of
Mhm.
some magnitude, whether it's drugs, sex, alcohol, abuse, whatever it may look like. Everybody has a past. No
Yes.
one is perfect but Jesus. No one is. So, with that being said, do you think from your own personal experience, and to me, personal experience is better than any experience because you've been
Mhm.
through it personally, you know what it looks like and feels like, smells like. So, with that being said, do you honestly think that this system, CPS, which is known as CPS, is it set up for parents like yourself who love their children, that's willing to get clean like you both have did? Is it set up for someone that has, which, like you said, is a disease? It's nothing that you want to do. Obviously, I don't know nobody who will want to do something where the world will frown on and look down on and try to take their children away. So obviously, this is nothing that you would want to have. People don't
Right.
want to have cancer. My mama had 3 different types of cancer. Trust me, she didn't want neither one. Okay. Life happens, unfortunately, and sometimes it brings about a sickness. So, with that being said, what do you think that can be implemented with the CPS system for parents that really want their children back, but they're dealing with a disease that that they're trying to fight and they're doing everything they're told to do? What do y'all honestly think that can help parents like yourself
In
want children? What can
in
CPS do to help you to
um
maintain
in
of getting kids
regards,
back?
well, they could stop lying about drug tests. That would be one.
Mhm.
Okay,
Like, number one, uno, if a person is clean, don't lie to them and tell them that they're positive, because
I
that's
agree,
a
Jennifer.
trigger. If I
Correct.
get told
Yep.
5 times
Good.
in a row that I'm positive, my mentality is like, well, like Amber said, did I forget that I picked up?
Wow.
Like, I know I'm not
That's
using.
psychological, like they're playing with your mind
And
almost.
Yep.
you know what? It made me so crazy. I was running around scrubbing the chairs, thinking like, is there
Right.
anything that's external forces that like in the exterior
Right. It
world,
makes
like,
it takes you there. Yeah. You'd be
yeah,
like,
it makes you so paranoid. You know what I mean? And then you get the drug test results back, and they're like, "Oh, it's negative," and you're like, "Okay, my brain is good. I didn't forget." You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not that I'm hanging out with anyone bad that's blowing smoke in my hair or putting anything in my food, because that's the paranoia that it gets to when you're being told 5 times in a row that you're dirty. And the other thing is what has really helped me is CODA,
What is that?
Codependence Anonymous.
Oh, okay. Can you explain for our listening audience, Jennifer, what that is?
Codependence Anonymous is basically a way for women and men to get to the root of addiction problems. Like, yeah, we can quit drugs, we can quit alcohol, but let's get to the root of healthy relationships. Because let's be honest, during the course of life, a lot of addicts and alcoholics, well, an alcoholic is an addict, have undergone some kind of severe trauma. And usually trauma occurs not just, hey, I'm undergone trauma. It usually occurs in a relationship or in a partnership. And I had trauma that occurred to me as a child.
Mm-hmm.
I have an amazing family.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't understood what was going on. So my little brain didn't know how to cope with that. Mm-hmm. As an adult, I had abandonment issues. Mm-hmm. That led to some addiction problems. Once I got through the addiction, was able to stay clean and really start working the steps, then I was able to go back and be like, wow, you know what? I'm a little codependent. Like, I have an inner child that if I get into an argument with someone and you say, hey, you need 15 minutes or an hour to calm down, my little child, like, think of like a 2-year-old.
I see what you're saying.
If a 2-year-old is having a temper tantrum and you can't get them to calm down and you walk out of the room and they follow you having the temper tantrum, they're begging because they don't know how to self-soothe.
Right.
So my inner child didn't know how to let a person walk out the door and soothe myself. Because to me, if I got into an argument with someone and they walked out the door, I couldn't take it. I thought they were walking out the door for forever, never coming back. I didn't understand healthy boundaries.
Right. That's
now
what
that I'm clean and sober and working the steps in Narcotics Anonymous and working the steps in Codependence Anonymous, I'm able to go, okay, you can walk out the door and I don't need to self-medicate to feel better. You can walk out the door and I can call someone else and calm myself down. You can walk out the door and I can hit the yoga mat and self-soothe myself. I can meditate and breathe and do some Wim Hof breathing, splash some water on my face, get right with myself, and realize in an hour we can pick up the phone and have a conversation about what just happened. I did not understand that before. And I didn't understand that in my early 20s and 30s, what the root cause of my addiction
was. And I think it says a lot you're willing to do the work to go back in and see what caused it. Let's show you care about getting better. You know what I'm saying? You went to the roots of it.
Yeah. I mean, I've really dug in. And then, another thing that has helped me heal has been my culture, has been spirituality. And I don't like to use the word religion.
Right.
I believe
right.
I believe all paths, lead to that one, to God, to the Creator. And, my spirituality is to sit outside. When I want to see what God has created, I get outside. And if I have to hug a tree and hug the dirt and pray a little harder, then that's what it takes. Because yes.
Right. Jennifer,
you got to experience that with.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that was really cool.
We're getting close to the end. It's so much great information you guys are providing. It's making me think too with the drugs. I don't know. It's almost like if you have someone that's dealing with the disease and obviously they need help, it's almost like you expect them to operate on a higher frequency and knowing that they can't handle it. But they're still giving you all these milestones to reach. It's almost like you're set up to fail.
You are. And Amber and I just went on a journey together. We went to New Mexico and she got to, it's not like when you go to these areas. It's not like when you go to these areas, they're not welcoming or loving. Amber and I both experienced it together. Like we discussed, we discussed some resentments that we had. That's part of our spiritual journey. We discussed some of the anger that we had. We discussed burying it on the mountain. Like we discussed praying together, like helping each other stay in this light. And it hurts my heart because my daughter loves Amber.
Wow. And Amber, you became teary-eyed talking about, the children and where the case is currently at right now. We are almost approaching the end of the session, but I will definitely not ask you, Jennifer, at this point in time, if there is one thing that you would like to say right now with everything that's taking place, you know, who knows who's watching? Attorney Vince, judges, the system. Who knows? If you had that opportunity, what if it was that judge that can make that appeal, or whoever make the final decision to grant your appeal? What would be your last cry? What would be your last say for fighting for
Just that
you?
we stand as one. That we
Go
stand as one in this. That we don't let the courts divide us, no matter what nationality we are, no matter what religion, what tradition or
ahead.
culture we are, that we stand as one for the children of this country. That's what I
Absolutely.
ask everyone that listens to me or that hears Amber, is that we stand as one together. That's the only way we're going to change this system and change the judicial courts, is to stand together.
Stay together. I definitely agree. Unity is power.
It is.
It is. Wow. I also want to, do you already, without having to disclose too much information, Jennifer, do you have a date that's set of when y'all supposed to go back to court? Not as of yet.
No, we don't even know. She has 45 days to file the petition with the Texas Supreme Court. And if the Texas Supreme Court, and then the Texas Supreme Court has to deem this case worthy to be heard. So there's no date unless of course there's able to have some kind of tribal intervention on federal jurisdiction in this case, which I'm still exploring that avenue.
Well, I want to ask you, with that being said, can an attorney come in and step in to redirect the direction of what is going right now?
Yes.
Okay. In other words, there is still hope.
Yes. I'm not losing hope. I'm not going to stop fighting for my kids.
I
Never.
am in agreement with you. Don't you ever stop fighting for your kids. And it is not over yet. I don't care what it looks like, neither. And I've been through a lot of stuff. I promise to God. Listen, I get it. I know that pain. I wear it.
It hurts.
It hurts. It hurts.
I mean, like, I can feel it in my
Jesus.
heart. I can feel it in my womb.
Yeah. But when I tell you, Jennifer, you are listen, when God bring you through this and those kids are returned back with you where they belong.
I know.
The devil knows that you are a
lifetime.
serious threat. You are a serious threat because you're going to help rescue so many children in this broken, corrupt system. And that's why you're being fought like you're being fought.
Yeah,
but
I
it's
know.
not over yet. Just
I know,
that.
and I'm not fighting alone. It's just like
You're
Amber
not.
said to me earlier.
You're
I'm not fighting
absolutely
this
not.
alone.
And I do believe that once this show, even now, and even with the re-airs, you're going to get so many people that's going to be in agreement with you. I'm in agreement with you. I am praying for you. Again, when Amber shared with me what was going on with you, I wanted to make sure on my first show coming back that we featured your story. So this can get out in the airwaves so people can know what's going on and hopefully take action and steps to try to help you get your children back. Okay.
Yes, I appreciate you. It's like
no. That's what
Amber
we're here
is a
for.
warrior in this with me. So are you.
Absolutely. That's what my life consists of. I always had to fight. But you know what? Just know the race isn't given to the swift. It takes somebody that has that depth, that strength, that substance. And you have it. You do. I want to ask you, because again, we are getting close to the end of the segment. This is such an emotional story. This is such a needed story that provided so many nuggets and jewels. You'll be surprised so many other families that's facing what you are going to overcome one day. They're getting ready to walk into what you're going to overcome. So you have blessed so many families by sharing your truth, your transparency, you and Amber. I would also like to do a follow-up show with you, after you went back to court, if you don't mind, just to come back on and share what occurred.
Yes, and I would really like to listen to be honest, not to put Amber on the spot, I would like to listen to her speak about I think that there should be a full thing in regards to exposing the drug labs that are bad.
Yes.
And I don't know if there's a way to do that across the country, but I know that she's got information in the ones that are bad on San Antonio.
I think that would be a great idea for you, Amber.
Oh, I
Because
believe once I get my whole car situation situated, I fully intend on doing some research and seeing what all I can dig up on it and exposing them,
you should.
because and
Yes.
it's messed up. It is entirely messed up. Even if you're clean, I just went through something recently where a doctor of mine called in a prescription for me, and the pharmacist took it upon herself to call the doctor back, inform the doctor that I'm a drug addict and that I'm being treated for opioid use disorder, and the doctor canceled out my prescription, even though I had been open and honest with that doctor. And even though I have over 5.5 years clean, my body went through a full withdrawal, even though I'm clean
Right,
and
right.
everything. But yeah, no, things like that, it's not okay.
It's
You
not.
wouldn't do that to somebody who, like I said, is just, bipolar or schizophrenic or is going through cancer or anything. You wouldn't do anything like that to a kid going through cancer.
You would. It's a
But
stigma.
you're going to do that to a drug addict
Yeah,
who's clean, who is getting help. Just because I'm a drug addict doesn't mean that I have other issues, doesn't mean that I don't live with chronic pain, doesn't mean that I don't have other issues where I might need medication to help me out. And you're no one to sit there and have anything to say or do when it comes to my medical health. And so, yeah, I am
Yes.
setting my foot down into it and exposing all of it, because it is so messed up and CPS is so corrupt. And like I've said, I fully believe that there are really good workers out there. I've experienced it myself, but there are so many. It's almost like for every one good caseworker, there are 3 bad ones. And as soon as they find out that you have a history of addiction,
you're definitely, it's, to me, you're forever deemed in their eyes. That's
Yep.
what I've received from listening to parents like yourself that love their children, and from listening to people that work for CPS. They say they almost look at you with a different set of eyes.
Yeah, because we're all automatically bad and negligent. And I mean, I know me personally, when I was using, I was hyper focused on my kids. I was able to actually take my kids to the park. I could sit down and play with them. I wasn't crashed out in the bathroom or the bedroom or anything like that. Everybody handles their substance differently. Not that it's good, it's not good at all. It's just everybody handles it differently, and you can't take 2 addicts and say they're the same.
Correct. You took the words out of my mouth. Everybody is different. We're all uniquely within our own rights, our own self. So you can't just take a big brush and paint it across the whole system. And that's what's being done. So I think that's a great thing for you to do, Amber, is just to look into this and do further research. And once you get more information, I would love to bring you back on that regarding the drug, test for parents, and so they know the resources that they can have available during that time with CPS when they're fighting to get their children.
I'm very proud of Amber.
Yes, she's definitely doing the work. I'm proud of both of you guys. I truly am with your stories. They are life-changing. So I must share that we are at the end of this segment. I will definitely be in touch with the both of you. I will follow up with you, Jennifer. I want to know more about what's going on with your story to bring you back, and as well as with you as well, Amber, with you following up with the research for parents with drug histories and making sure that they're not being held wrongfully with CPS because of it. Okay. Thank you guys for being on the show today. I am praying. I'm in agreement with you, Jennifer. And again, you better not never give up. You better not give up.
I won't let her.
Okay. All right now. Okay.
I appreciate it. Amber and you and a lot of other strong women and men are holding me through this. I appreciate that.
And you need it. You deserve it. I can even imagine. It's hard enough going through CPS fighting for your kids and then what they're trying to do now. But you have a really big blessing ahead of you. I'm telling you. You would not being fought like this for nothing. You are a threat to the enemy. You are.
Thank you.
You are.
I will be praying for all of us.
You're a true warrior. Yes. So, but again, we're at the end of the segment, you guys. So again, we will definitely be in touch. And thank you so much for sharing your life-changing stories and information today. It's so appreciated.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Okay, guys, we have ran over our time. Oh my gosh, I can't even talk. But this Freedom Friday has definitely been, my God, I hope it brings freedom to you and helping you to fight for your children to never give up. There was a real story today where that's really taking place with CPS. So again, count your blessings because it could be worse. So I want to tell you to keep God first, stay safe. Don't you ever give up fighting for your children. And I can't wait to share with you our next story. Have a great weekend.